I always think there is an asterisk against the team that wins the cup on penalty kicks.
Possible exception of an Ireland youth team, maybe going back a little while.
Yeah. Oh no, well, no problem with that. I mean, I've no problem with you know.
62 games, 163 goals, 26 podcasts, 2 tired hosts, and 1 world champion to be crowned. Later we'll be joined by Brian Kerr to give his verdict on France against Argentina. But first we're with Daniel McDonald. And Dan, it feels like a long time since you were discovering the 24-hour McDonald's near the hotel room and Ireland's game against Malta, which of course, as everyone remembers, came on the opening day of the tournament. How are the final days going in Doha?
Who won that game? Who won
I
the
can't
Ireland
remember.
Malta game?
I honestly can't remember. I was trying to remember it. Just as I was speaking there.
I think Ireland won that game, didn't they? 1-0. Like, I'm normally very good on details and stuff, but I can't remember. Genuinely, you didn't tell me we were going to discuss this, right? So this is completely like Callum O'Dowda hit the post late on to make it 2-0. So Ireland did win the game 1-0, and I'm normally like pretty good on the details of that type of thing, and I can't remember. I'll remember before the end of the show. That's actually sort of quite annoying now that I genuinely can't remember what happened there. But anyway, the 24-hour McDonald's, yes, it's a long time ago. It is. It's weird, like the last week of the tournament, I just mentioned this in the newsletter I do, that I suppose, there's no suppose about it. I mean, like, the World Cup final is in my view, like the best sporting event you can attend. But the energy of the World Cup and the atmosphere is in some ways the first couple of weeks, and then you get to the last week and it's sort of it meanders along a bit, particularly when the semi-final ends. And I suppose in a way it sort of makes sense, like as countries go, people go, more fans go, and some media go, like people just like you have organizations with loads of people, they might leave one behind, and the place sort of does have an emptying out vibe around it. So the imprint of the tournament will be more visible, say during the group stages, than it will be a couple of days before the final. It's not as if you're sort of walking around to sort of final fever. Although, of course, there are places you can go where you can find it. So it's always one of the things about the World Cup final week that, in a strange way, it just gets to like that. The second semi-final is over, and it feels like a long time to the final itself. But then, of course, you walk into the stadium on final day, or you take your place wherever you are in the world to watch it, and it grabs you in more than anything else possibly can. But this is a sort of a weird sort of purgatory.
Yeah, it feels like, I'm not sure how many days in a row. I think felt like maybe about 10 days in a row where there was 4 games a day, and gradually easing down to just the 1 game a day with the semi-finals. It's not to say the air's gone out. It's a strange dynamic of there's fewer talking points in some way, but everything is suddenly getting more important. Just one thing that it is another long time ago with Infantino's press conference to open the tournament, where he was everything. He described himself as being more or less everything except possibly shy and retiring. His final press conference to close the tournament didn't quite have as many sound bites in it, but there was a few interesting talking points nonetheless, not least the 48-team World Cup confirmed for 2026.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the 48-team World Cup has always been confirmed for 2026. That's never been in doubt. But the format around it is more the thing that's a little bit more up in the air, in the sense that it's the 16 groups of 3. When it was like announced and confirmed it will be 48, it was very much presented in the context of there being 16 groups of 3, whereas now, one of the questions at the thing today was about, well, there'll be teams effectively fixing games or making arrangements in 3-team groups. This is something that's happened in the past. You're going back to sort of 82 and various instances where these things happened or were alleged to have happened. So the idea of like 12 groups of 4 is a better one, probably in terms of like the integrity of the competition and teams going all that way to play 2 games where you could be almost gone out your hands after the first one. At least 12 groups is better, but that would make it longer. That would generate more revenue, potentially more games. and Infantino's on about, the next tournament being worth potentially, double the amount of this 4-year cycle. But obviously that would make it a bit more of a marathon in some ways, and then 48 into 32, you'd have an extra round of knockouts, potentially more meaningless group stage games. Although I still think the 12-4s is far better than the 16-3s, that's for sure. And there will be more places to go around, although not a huge amount of extra places for Europe and for teams like Ireland, who I remember beat Malta when Callum Robinson was gifted a goal by that Maltese back pass, which I mean,
of course, yes.
Like Infantino's opening press conference was an own goal, similar to the Maltese performance. Just give everyone Maltese gift to Robinson. This one was a lot more less embarrassing for him, but still. I mean, he's not exactly someone who would fill you with great confidence. He was quick to clarify that there's nothing to stop him now staying until 2031. That is his maximum 3-year term. It doesn't include his provisional 3-year term at the start, which was basically a full term minus 1 year. So potentially you could have 15 years of Infantino that were not even potentially halfway into his era here. So the press conferences will continue. What was striking today, while he did take questions about Qatar and stuff, it was very much trying to pointed towards the future. The World Cup of 2026 will present less questions for them as regards the identity of the host.
So plenty going on off the pitch, and after the break we'll speak to Brian Kerr, get his verdict on France against Argentina.
Hey Brian, thanks for joining us. How are you, first of all?
Good, Aidan. Yeah, I'm in. I took a bit of time out from watching matches last night, and joined a bit of a Christmas party with the fabulous staff of Kappa Hospital. So I'm in very much in recovery mode, I'd say, today. But I'm grand. It was a good day.
Good stuff. Good cause. I think the last time we spoke was just before Argentina against Holland, when they were very good for a long time, and then Weghorst came on and kind of put the cat among the pigeons. But have you been impressed by Argentina in the 2 games since?
Yeah, I think as the tournament has gone on, Argentina got better. We know they had a rocky start. They were beaten by Saudi Arabia, and then they were under pressure then from the off side. Would they actually get out of the group? And they managed to get the couple of results they needed. Beat Poland handy enough. Beat Mexico first, and then Poland. But I think they've had to adapt. I think they've had to change tactics from match to match. They've changed system from match to match as well. They haven't always been right on top of it. Some games have been very, I'd say, tame enough in the first half of matches, and it's kind of when Messi gets going and does something magnificent, as he's done in probably 3 games in a row now. That's when they get going. But you look at the Netherlands match, they were on the edge of losing that match, Aidan. The 2-0 lead looked like they were coasting, and then Netherlands threw on the big fellas up front and started banging her in the box. It was the complete opposite of total football. And funny enough, we've seen that before with Netherlands here in Dublin many years ago, and they did the same thing and put through loads of players forwards on the boot. Anyway, they booted in the box, and they got the 2 goals back. Great goals. The second goal, the free kick, very clever, Weghorst at the end. And then in extra time, there wasn't really much happened. It almost looked like they had settled for that, I'd say, the Netherlands, and Argentina weren't good enough to go on and get a winning goal, and they end up win the match on penalty kicks. And we saw the nasty side of them, I'd say, after that game, and their attitude towards the Dutch players, which I have to say I didn't like it. It was a rough house match. I think it was 18 yellow cards, and but I think against Croatia they were much better against Croatia. Again, it took a half an hour. Nothing much happened. In the early part of the game, there was a lot of cancelling out. Croatia were probably better team on top in the middle of the pitch with Modric and Kovacic and Brozovic. They were slightly the better side, but Argentina kind of dug in and they were waiting on those moments, and then to get the break of the penalty, which was let's say disputed penalty. My instinct at the time was it was a penalty. You could say it wasn't much the goalkeeper Livakovic could have done, but I felt it was a penalty. Messi scores the penalty, and then it seems to kind of take the pressure off them. And then after that, Alvarez does the stuff. Messi controls the game. The last quarter of an hour, the first half, second half, moments of magic from him all through it. So he's got better as the tournament's gone on. But I suppose the team, you look at it, the backup players aren't brilliant, but they've found a steady shape and combination in the midfield area. They've varied between three at the back, or two centre halves, Romero, Otamendi. At times they start with Martinez as well in the centre back positions. Last game with Croatia, they were back to a 4. They often bring on Martinez then when they get ahead, and they want to hold on to it to become really solid then. But then we had that wonderful third goal, an unforgettable goal. One of the great goals of this World Cup and any World Cup, I suppose. But one thing that interests me, there hasn't been that many great goals in the competition. There hasn't been that many fabulous long-range goals. A lot of most of the goals are scored from inside the box. We know that now. A lot of them are scored inside the 6-yard box. We haven't had any of those kind of blasting long-range goals or free kicks over the wall into top corner. I suppose the reason for that, I think teams are better organised defensively. The goalkeepers are better. The walls defensively are better organised in general. But no. So Argentina, I think, in good shape. Have improved as it's gone along. Have found a way of coping with leaving Messi just up the pitch to walk around for plenty of time in the match that we see. If you look at him in the game, you don't watch the ball so much. Just watch him. He's a lot of the time he is just walking around. And he's actually a lot of time he's walking away from where the ball is, where the build-up play is going, as if he's leaving it to the rest of them to kind of enjoy themselves with the ball a bit. And then when he feels it's the optimum moment for him to get it in the most dangerous position, he makes his move and he pounces and he makes something like that fabulous pass for Molina for the brilliant goal against the Netherlands. What a good pass that was! But then, he's probably done much more in the tournament than I expect him to. But supporting cast have got better as it's gone on. In the early stage, I thought they weren't going to be good enough because I didn't think the backup would be solid enough defensively. Otamendi he was almost a figure of fun when he was at Manchester City towards the end. He's at Benfica playing with Vertonghen, and you're kind of going 2 old boys there, and they do all right, but they're not that great. But he's been very, very good in this. He made the odd mistake, but he's generally been good. Romero has got better as it's gone on. He's made mistakes too against Australia when they looked like buckling, and when Australia got back into the match. But they've just improved. I think Alvarez, the youth and the energy to come into the team after the Saudi Arabia game is very, very important. Fernandez, youthful player, I think he's 21. McAllister is 23. Alvarez is 21. I think that youth and energy, because none of them were part of the 35 game run and beaten run they had before they came to this one. They weren't in the team.
Yeah.
And because of the Saudi Arabia game and how it's gone since then, when Fernandez came in and got a fabulous goal, and he's in the side. McAllister's in the side, and because I think Lautaro Martinez has been poor when he's played, and he's missed the chances when he's not. Messi's put him through a couple of times. He could have wrapped up the game with Australia, and he didn't. I think Alvarez has come in, and his work rate and his energy is part of allowing Messi to just wait for the moments. But Alvarez has been very good goals, good finishes, but also really good pressuring defenders when it took to that. We saw him getting a goal in another match when he dispossessed the goalkeeper, picked up on the dispossession and stuck it in the net. So he's been vital to it. So they found a team that's working.
Yeah, the manager, obviously, Lionel Scaloni, would have been part of the Argentina team that would have played against your team in '97, among a lot of great players, Riquelme and Aymar and the likes. I'm not going to ask if you thought he could be a manager then, but have you been impressed by him in this tournament, given how well he's adapted his team to find a formula?
Yeah, I think he has been very impressive. Obviously, with Deschamps and the manager in Morocco, they've done great jobs, those managers. But given that he hasn't had a long club career, he's a relatively young guy. What am I thinking? There's those lads were they were 77 birthdays that under 20 World Cup. So I'd work off that. So that would make him 45. Would it? It'd make him about 45. So he. He hasn't had a long career. He's as a manager, club boys. He's managed underage international teams, and by its nature, Argentinian teams, they have a lot of fairly big name players, big egos about them, and not the easiest job to manage. The Argentinian team, national team, any national team, but Argentina, Brazil, the level of expectation is so huge. That's a tough job, but he's been prepared to adapt and make the changes as the games have gone on. They got over the Saudi Arabia one, didn't look well in that match, didn't play very well, did enough against Mexico, were a bit better, did enough against Poland, a little bit better. Australia had sticky moments in the match, as I said. So, but he's prepared to change with the flow of the game, adapt with the momentum of the game. And generally it's about when we get ahead, as we saw against the Netherlands, it's let's shut up shop a bit and be content with that. And yet they had to go again once Netherlands got the 2 goals back, and just about had enough. I mean, they end up winning on penalty kicks, so it's tight stuff. But I think he's done a superb job. He's one of, I think, the staff you mentioned. They've Pablo Aymar as the assistant, and Walter Samuel is one of the coaches as well. And all 3 of them were part of that team that we played in '97 World Cup semi-final. They had a fairly decent team. As it turned out after, Cambiasso as well, another fellow who had a great career at Real Madrid and Inter, I think he was at. Riquelme, Barca and Villarreal. Who else did they got? Another few. The lad that scored against us, Romeo, had a decent career as well. So Scaloni was a midfield player, tidy, very neat and compact and tidy on the ball. Riquelme was the man though. And already Cambiasso had been making a bit of a name for himself. He was already a first team player with juniors, I think. But so it's interesting they're back together in this such an important role. But they were really, really good side. Although we should have at least got a draw in that semi-final. I mean, the goal was a scrappy goal. It deflected off Colin Hawkins. If I remember correctly, he went on a bit of a loop over Derek O'Connor in goal. But it was early enough in the second half, maybe 10 minutes into the second half. And we really took the game to them. Then we controlled the game, and the crowd in Kuala Lumpur were all behind us. I find it hard to believe, but the crowd were very much. We were probably a bit of the. I was going to say we were the Morocco of that World Cup. We actually beat Morocco along the way. In the last 16, they were the African champions. But the crowd with Malaysia were very much behind us, and we were well on top in the game. We just couldn't get the goal. Alan Kirby got right through. We remember one-on-one with the goalkeeper. I think the goalkeeper was Franco, maybe had been the goal. Anyway, it was a 1v1. Keeper saved it off his legs. Colin Hawkins had a great chance from a header on a corner late on as well, just whizzed over the top of the bar. Anyway, they went on to win it, and we won the third place playoff against Ghana. But they've done all right, some of their fellas.
They have absolutely. At this stage of the tournament, like even those games, any major tournament, are players and managers sort of trying to convince themselves? You hear people say it's just another game, just do what you do. You know, are they trying to convince themselves that it is another game and trust the process? I suppose is a phrase that people use a lot. Or are they kind of embracing the enormity of the occasion, do you think, and getting the best out of themselves that way?
It's an interesting one, Aidan. I think the Argentinian team, we could speak about France as well, but the Argentinian team is a very much, it's a kind of an emotionally driven team. That's my flavour of it, that it's kind of, it's so important to the whole nation. And it kind of encapsulates the personality of the country in a way. And so I don't think there'll be anything like that going on in the few days they've had between Tuesday night. Wasn't it Tuesday night very much? Tuesday, Wednesday? Wasn't it Tuesday, Wednesday? Every Tuesday, France was Wednesday. Since Tuesday, I mean, it would be very much recovery stuff. Manager would be dealing with the medical staff all the time. There's been a little bit about that. Messi's been carrying a hamstring. There was a period in the game the other night before he turned on the wizardry where he seemed to be bending over and stretching his hamstring. So they'd be looking after the players. They'd be, doing the analysis stuff from France, obviously, and showing the players where the threats come from in the French team and the style of the French team and where they might exploit weaknesses. Would they be treating it just as another game? I doubt that. I mean, they know how important this is, what an opportunity it is. I think Messi has become much more involved and much more, not just the personality on the pitch, but I think he's been almost a backup to the manager. I mean, they've gone through the Maradona phase of management, which wouldn't have been very, I'd say it was somewhat volatile, to say the least, and because of his genius and reputation, it would have been harder for Messi to work with him. But I think now, as Messi's matured and he is the main man, he is the captain, he's taken on that role in a much stronger way in terms of being the one that's a little bit demanding of the other players, and that they respect his magic and his ability to pull something out of the fire for them, and they're prepared to weigh in and do whatever's necessary. All other nine outfield players and the goalkeeper to allow him to have his moments to size up when that moment is, and to be in the position for the pounce when the opportunity comes. So so just go back on where are they at, and would the talk be of it's just another game? I don't think so. I think the talk will be of this is the best chance we've had to do this in how many World Cups since they played Germany in the final? 2012, is it? It was 2012 with Germany. So is that right? Am I right in saying that?
2014.
Sorry, 2014 against Germany. So they get another chance to do it. They know the importance of it. But they also got to be disciplined and controlled. So I'm sure that's what the staff are emphasising, that they've got well, like you'd imagine the stadium won't be that many French supporters in the stadium again. We've seen that with all the European teams. Saw that with France and Morocco. The whole stadium almost was on the side of Morocco and dressed in the Moroccan kits and flags. So they'll have all that emotion behind them. But I'm sure there's be an emphasis on controlling the emotion, in playing with power and playing with strength and playing with desire and passion and all that, but also in not losing the head and not forgetting the tactics of the game and where the threats are going to come from France. But it can't be just another game for them. It's too much emotion involved. And I think now the whole Argentinian support and country, where previously there was an element of, I suppose, frustration that he hadn't managed to get them over the line as Maradona did. That now they see him in what he's doing in this tournament, and they've seen the emotion of him. They've seen him kind of spitting a bit of fire at the Dutch players after the penalty kicks. They've seen him leading the singing after the match. They've seen him kind of haranguing the referee, getting away with the odd tackle, got away with a handball where he could have got put off. Stuff like that. They're seeing the different side of him that they identify with, and he's always had this bit where, look, he never played in Argentina. He went away as a boy, 13-year-old to Barcelona, and never come back to play there. So there's always another element. Was he really ours? Now they really believe in him, and he's shown what he can do to try and get them across the line. This one, I suppose that's why most people, like, there's a lot of nastiness about the way the Argentinian team has behaved at times in matches. They were at their best against Croatia, and they were well behaved and disciplined. But I think everyone across that follows football would love to see Messi winning the World Cup at this stage of his career. But that's easy said. France will be another task altogether.
And just briefly onto France, like they were under the cosh a lot, certainly second half against England, and for a lot of the game against Morocco. Like, would you be taking that as a good sign that they came through it, or a bad sign that that Morocco and England kind of exposed a bit of a weakness in them?
I think from their point of view, it was a very positive thing. I mean, you look at the difficulties that Deschamps is dealing with in terms of the team and the squad, and the doubts there was before they went to the tournament, that they hadn't been playing so well in the Nations League, and so many defenders not available to them, and then you're looking at them losing the midfield players, and Pogba and Kante in particular. And then they go to the tournament, and early on they lose other players with injury, and then Pavard didn't play well in the right back position. They lose Hernandez. His brother comes in, he's done a good job. He scored a fabulous goal the other day. But all around, again, they're another team. They found a way to win the matches. They found a way. Like, lost the game, Tunisia gave all the players that weren't in his best starting 11 the game. They lost that game. They just came through that, and I think they've been. I thought the France-England match was the best quality match overall of two very good technical teams, and I think France have been the most consistent team in the way they've played through the tournament. And that spell, as you said, after they got the lead goal, which brought Morocco out, which up until then we'd seen sporadically from Morocco. But now we saw Morocco having to come out and play, and God did they play in the match. And they had sticky times. But what we saw is Canate coming into the team instead of Upamecano, and doing really well. And that partnership with Varane was smashing in the match with brilliant defensive display, some fantastic blocks. And Lloris, again, have another big game, making big saves when it mattered, when it was only 1-0. And they had that bit of resilience, and I mean, you look at the midfield, Tushimani and Fofana. They're not long in the side. They've not been around that long, and they're standing up to every challenge that's been put in front of them. I mean, I think Rabiot will come back in if he's fit for the final. Griezmann has been sensational in the middle of the field. That was a real master stroke with their chance to move him back from the front line back in there, and he's played both as a defender, nicking the ball around the edge of his own box, and the attacker, the run he made on the first goal, the run in behind and the cross, and then Mbappe's shot was blocked and it comes up in the air, and then they sticks it in. But then his involvement and the positive stuff, he's involved in almost all the positive stuff they're doing, and then they have the threat of the pace of the wide players. I think they have more talent in their team than Argentina have, and they have more threats. Argentina's threat is Messi and what he can do and what he can make happen. Obviously, Alvarez has responded to that. But if you look at the French team, I mean, Griezmann can really make something happen when he's on the ball around the midfield area, linking the play. The pace of Dembele in the wide position, the pace of Mbappe, and even if you keep Mbappe quiet, as England did, they still found a way to score the goal. Griezmann whips in to get the winner, and Giroud is a threat as well. So I think they have more threat, but it's still very even looking when you look at both sides. They both play similarly. They're prepared to let the opposition have a bit of the ball. They don't go for the high press. They kind of converge in the midfield area, bottle it up, make it difficult for the opposition, and they wait their moments. And then when they get ahead, they're quite happy to defend the numbers and wait on the breakout. So they're very, very well matched indeed. And I think the game could go on a long time. I don't think there's going to be a lot of goals. If you get an early goal in the game, be great. It'll open it up. Yeah. I don't think there'll be a lot of goals.
And can you call it? Can you give a verdict, or is it one of those that first goal is?
No, I wouldn't. As I said, I think France are the better team all round, and I'm sure they'll have a plan to deal, with the threat of Messi. But he may only need one or two moments to do the damage. I think overall they're the better team. There's a little bit of weaknesses here and there. I think Koundé has done very well in the right back position. Lloris hasn't made a real mistake yet, apart from a couple of distribution ones in the game fairly early on. But I think the Argentinian team, there's more weaknesses in their side, but yet they have this passion and toughness and hardness and emotion around the whole thing about the Messi side of it. So it's so finely balanced. I wouldn't like to call it. I think it'll go as far as extra time. And if it does, I'd kind of like someone to win it in extra time if it does, rather than it go to penalty kicks and a World Cup and won on penalty kicks. I don't think it's not satisfactory. It's not as it's got to be. You got to find a way of doing it, sorting it out on the day. But I always think there is an asterisk against the team that wins the cup on penalty kicks.
Possible exception of an Ireland youth team, maybe going back a little while.
Yeah. I know. No problem with that. I mean, I've no problem with I often used to laugh about that. In fact, I remember in the planning of going to those tournaments saying you could get lucky and get straight to the final by winning the group. There was no semi-final in that tournament, in the under-18 tournament. There wasn't the under-16 tournament. There was quarterfinals. But because the youth team, they're really under-19 players, there's so many of them already in the first teams, they were trying to keep the number of matches down. So the way it was two groups of four, and the group winner went straight to the final. And in my head, I used to go, we could win the group and end up in the final and win it on penalties. I wasn't predicting it, but that's how it worked out. It can be a good thing too, but sometimes you might look at this level and go, I'm not so sure. I think I'd like one of the teams to win it in either regular time or extra time.
So, Brian, that's been great. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Okay, it's a pleasure, Aidan. Good to talk to you again. I hope we all get a great game Sunday.
Thanks very much.
Dan, we heard Brian's verdict there. I suppose the question: who are you going for? Is it Messi to crown the career, or is it Mbappe to get the second World Cup by the age of 23?
I don't know. I mean, that's classically bad punditry, isn't it? Yes. My opinion is I have no opinion. Although I know Gary the other night, and I know Gary in his column as well is struggling to sort of definitively come down on one side, because you convince yourself it'll go one way, and then you find something and you change your mind and go the other, and you're also trying to figure out how much are you wanting the story you want to cloud your view of what might actually happen, because you think about it and you can see more ways that France will win. I think in the sense of. And I know you sort of poured over some of the details with Brian there as well, so not to repeat things, but they have they have a brilliant front four. Griezmann has been a sort of revelation in the competition. Giroud will be a good threat, a physical threat that the Argentine centre halves probably won't enjoy. And if they try and neutralize Mbappe and Dembele, you have to take more risk in other departments. And also as well, I think while Argentina did a very good job against Croatia in the middle of the park, they probably had some younger legs in there around maybe a slightly older Croatian side, and the fact Dalic pretty much had to replace, Brozovic was gone 5 minutes into the second half. Like they had to refresh things, whereas France have younger legs in that department, and they have options. Now, one thing I have to be conscious of is, there is this sort of bug going through the French camp, and unclear what it is. There's various sort of suggestions what it might be. And there has been a lot of illness over here generally. It's been a sort of afflicting sort of English journalists and something's going around the place. A lot of people have been sick here, and clearly the French squad. You saw the scenes of Rabiot effectively being isolated when they come back to their hotel after they won. So that's a little bit of a fear. So but there are reasons why you sort of fancy France, and also that sense that they haven't really been pushed. Like they keep winning, right? They don't have to win and so on. But I just don't know. Am I wishing a scenario, or I believe it? Or is it just that Argentina have got better as the competition have got on? That in Messi, they've still got the best player, who's influencing games, and the younger lads have stepped up and improved around him, in terms of Fernandez and Alvarez, and they'll have the stadium behind them.
I was going to ask that. There's a lot of Argentine fans obviously still there. You mentioned obviously fans from other countries leaving for obvious reasons. Are there Argentina fans flocking in, or how is it that you're just hanging around still from the previous?
I'm not sure about. To be honest, I'm not sure about flocking in. Maybe there will be, but in the sense that, in terms of the stadium itself, it'll be more of them. Now, the final, I would say it's a little bit more corporate. There'll be people flying in January for a final. There's a lot of people who would have got these tickets, which give you a route all the way to the final. Follow your team, and a lot of people will stick with that. So, I felt that the neutral contingent in the semi-final was bigger than it was for the quarter-final, and I'd imagine for the final it might be the case again. But they'll still have a lot of the support, and a lot of probably the local support as well. But Argentina have improved as it's gone on, and as I said, Messi's been so influential. I feel like when I analyse it, I lean down on France, and yet I just have this gut feeling that it might just happen for Argentina this time. Maybe even that little bug and a little bit of uncertainty, and even the left side defensively hasn't been terrific as well. I know Kanate was a bit better, but then is he unwell? There's a lot of sort of various stories flying around the place. Maybe it will fall the way of Argentina narrowly, but that's what I'm thinking now. I might have changed my mind by Sunday. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's one of those kind of classic games where you have a team, the old expression of class is permanent, and that's France. They've got a bunch of class players who, if they played Argentina 10 times, you would fancy France to win more games than Argentina would. The thing Argentina have though is momentum, and we spoke about this before with the emotion of it coming through from the various games. The fact that they were in, we were speaking about how long ago it feels since certain things happened. The Saudi Arabia defeat to Argentina feels like months ago, or defeat of Argentina, I should say, feels like months ago. And since then, they've been in must-win territory. So they've been going and going and going, and this wave of momentum that's building up behind them. Having said that, I keep coming down on the side of France simply because I just think that there's too many match winners in there. And in these finals, you can be Zidane, it can be Zidane or Ronaldo. I think oftentimes you just end up with the match winners do step up. Now, obviously, they have in Argentina and Messi have the greatest match winner of all time. I just think, especially with Deschamps, I think there can be a plan there with Deschamps. They'll focus on Messi. Absolutely, they'll focus on Messi. And would obviously be the French game plan to stifle Argentina. What's the Argentina plan to stifle France? That's the question I would have. And I just think that, if you drop deep, you're bringing Giroud into the game. If you step up, you're bringing Mbappe into the game. If you kind of go in between, you're bringing Griezmann into the game. And I just think that there's probably too many match winners with France. So I also picked them at the start of the tournament. So you kind of stick with the horse you rode in on and away. obviously, like most of the predictions in this, there's no money on it or anything like that. So, had I put money on it, they'd be gone. So, but yeah, I just can't see beyond Messi producing something magical, which is always possible. I just can't see what way Argentina win the game.
Yeah, listen, the French win makes the most sense. It definitely does. But I mean, sometimes football doesn't make sense, and I mean, we may as well just have different predictions. Otherwise, it's just boring, really, isn't it? So, I'll lean towards Argentina, based on some kind of act of God, if not a hand of God. I think they might just. I think they might do it, but I mean, as I said, like it's. I feel like it might be an extra time final. That's definitely something that's on my radar. But maybe it's just Argentina's time, but then maybe that's just something I want to believe rather than something I can argue the case for. But I'll go that way.
Okay. Well, we'll speak after the final and see for the final time which one of our predictions, many of the predictions we've got wrong. We'll see which one of us has to be right at least. That's the only good thing on this. Thanks for joining us on In the World Cup. We'll be back after the final. Watch us on independent.ie or YouTube, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.